Good morrow, good cousins. It's James, and it is Shakespeare Day. I mentioned last time we talked, that the world was going to start pushing back against this beautiful love that's forming between Romeo and Juliet, and today is that day. So the play opens with a brawl, and we're going to see another one, and we are in Act 3, Scene 1. Things get serious. And we find Mercutio and Benvolio and their friends walking through Verona. And Benvolio says, "I pray thee, good Mercutio, let's retire. The day is hot, the Capulets abroad, and if we meet, we shall not escape a brawl. For now these hot days is a bad blood stirring." Okay, so I remember days in New York, but especially Chicago, it would get to be like 100 degrees and 100% humidity. And I remember walking around Rogers Park and just feeling like a fist fight was about to break out at any second. Like, I knew what the heat was doing to me. It was making me really irritable. I could see other people just over it. People looking at each other with unfriendly eyes, and just so many times I thought, man, we're one casual bump away from a fist fight here. And I think that's what Shakespeare's talking about now. It's one of those days that is just so hot and unpleasant that you can almost feel it about to start. And Benvolio is very wise to say, let's get out of here, because I'm seeing the Capulets around here, and if we meet each other, I know we're going to fight. Mercutio then starts giving Benvolio crap about being worried about it, and the two begin to quarrel about which one of them is more likely to get into a fight. So they're quarreling about who quarrels more, and you can really see the mind state that these two young men are in. They're fighting about who's got a hotter temper. And Mercutio says, "Nay." Mercutio says, "Come, thou art as hot a jack in thy mood as any in Italy, and as soon moved to be moody and as soon moody to be moved." And Benvolio says, "And what two?" And Mercutio says, "Nay, and there were two such. We should have none, surely, for one would kill the other. Why, thou wilt quarrel with a man that hast a hair more or a hair less in his beard than thou hast. Thou wilt quarrel for a man for cracking nuts, having no other reason but because thou hast hazel eyes." And they go on and on. So they're already fighting. And then the Capulets show up. And Tybalt with his followers show up. And Tybalt is looking for Romeo. He's gunning for Romeo. He wants to call Romeo into a fight. Benvolio and Mercutio, especially Mercutio, want to start a fight with him for no other reason, just because. Just Mercutio immediately is like, "Hi, why don't we fight?" And Tybalt is like, "No, I don't want to fight with you. I'm actually looking for Romeo. Can you tell me where he is?" And Mercutio's like, "No, fight me." Tybalt is actually kind of like the more sane of the people on the street. He's actually just wanting to see Romeo. Mercutio tries to start a fight. Tybalt won't have it. But then Romeo comes in, and Tybalt tells him, "Romeo, the love I bear thee can afford no better term than this. Thou art a villain." Romeo says, "Tybalt, the reason I have to love thee doth much excuse the appertaining rage to such a greeting. Villain I am none. Therefore farewell. I see thou knowest me not." Now, Romeo has just married Juliet, which makes him cousin to Tybalt now. They're family now. Now, Tybalt doesn't know this. Romeo, of course, does. Tybalt says, "Boy, this will not excuse the injuries thou hast done me. Therefore turn and draw." Romeo says, "I do protest I never injured thee, but love thee better than thou canst devise, till thou shalt know the reason of my love. And so, good Capulet, which name I tender as dearly as mine own, be satisfied." Now, Mercutio just can't take this. He's like, oh, calm, dishonorable, vile submission. And he draws his sword on Tybalt. He just can't stand the fact that Romeo is not fighting back, is so submissive to Tybalt. He just can't stand that. And he draws on Tybalt, and they start fighting. Now, again, Mercutio and Benvolio don't know about the marriage. They don't understand why Romeo is so peaceful toward Tybalt. And so they start fighting. And Romeo tries to break it up, just like Benvolio broke it up in the beginning of the play. And he gets in between them, but in that moment, Tybalt takes advantage of Romeo getting in between them and puts his rapier under Romeo's arm and straight into Mercutio and stabs him and flees. And Mercutio now, this is the thing about the rapier. It is basically a long needle. It used to be with the swords, if you got hit with a sword, it was a big gash, but it was, you could like stitch it together and stuff. But with these new needles, you just, it's like an ice pick. You just go deep and there's almost no blood. It's just a little trickle, but basically it's a mortal wound. It's a whole new thing. And Mercutio can feel inside himself that, he probably punctured his lung, or whatever it is, but it's very serious. It just doesn't look serious. And Mercutio says, I am hurt. Oh, plague on both your houses, I am sped. Is he gone and hath nothing? Did Tybalt get away and he didn't even get hurt? Damn it. Benvolio says, what, are the hurt? Benvolio can't even see any blood. Mercutio says, aye, a scratch. Marry, 'tis enough. Where's my page? Go, villain, fetch a surgeon. Romeo says, courage, man, the hurt cannot be much. Again, they're checking him and they're not seeing a whole lot of wounding. Mercutio says, no, 'tis not so deep as a well, nor so wide as a church, but 'tis enough. 'Twill serve. Ask for me tomorrow, and you shall find me a grave man. I am peppered, I warrant, for this world. Peppered means done. A plague on both your houses. Sounds, a dog, a rat, a mouse, a cat to scratch a man to death. Like, I'm going to die of a scratch here. Like, I'm going to die, and it doesn't even look like I'm wounded. It doesn't, like, it would be more glorious if blood was flowing out of me and I was about to die, but it's just so pathetic. It's just a little trickle. And Tybalt and he says, Mercutio says, why the devil came you between us, he says to Romeo. I was hurt under your arm. And Romeo is just like, I thought it all for the best. I was just trying to help. Sorry. Mercutio says, help me into some house. Mercutio says, help me into some house, Benvolio, or I shall faint. Plague on both your houses. They've made worms meat of me. I have it, and soundly too. Your houses. So a plague on both your houses is screw the Capulets and screw the Montagues. This whole thing's killed me. Actually, he bears some responsibility because he started the whole fight. He started the whole thing. Really, Mercutio started this fight. Like, Tybalt was trying to start a fight with Romeo. Romeo wasn't having it. And unless Romeo draws, Tybalt is not going to kill him. So this whole thing is Mercutio's fault, basically, I think. And he pays the price. And he gets dragged into a house by Benvolio. And Romeo's left alone. And he says, this gentleman, the prince's near ally, my very friend, hath got his mortal hurt on my behalf. My reputation stained with Tybalt's slander. Tybalt an hour hath been my cousin. Oh, sweet Juliet, thy beauty hath made me effeminate, and in my temper softened valor's steel. I shouldn't have backed down to Tybalt. I shouldn't have done it. I should have stood up for myself. I think he's wrong. Benvolio comes back and tells Romeo that Mercutio is dead. And Mercutio and Romeo says, "This day's black fire on more days doth depend. This but begins the woe, others must end." So this is kicking. This is starting something bad. We're going to go down a dark road. And at this point, Romeo is fully intending to go down that dark road. He thinks he was wrong by trying to be peaceful. And then enters Tybalt. And Romeo draws on him, and they fight, and Romeo kills him. And Benvolio says, "You better get out of here. If you're caught and you're found to have just murdered Tybalt, you're going to be put to death. You better run, boy." And Romeo runs away. And there's a big commotion, and the prince comes in, strangely, with Capulet and Montague in tow, and they see Tybalt dead, and they ask Benvolio what the heck just happened, and Benvolio more or less tells them the truth. Doesn't really admit that Mercutio started the whole thing, but he pretty much relates it as it happened. Both the Montagues and Capulets are asking the prince to, you got to kill the other side for this. And the other side is saying, you got to kill the other side for this. It's their fault. It's their fault. And the prince is in a bind. I've seen the prince played as, like a man who is relaxed but pissed off about this, as if it's a minor inconvenience, as if his town is safe. When I think the exact opposite is true. There is a potential civil war that is just like a low-grade civil war that has been brewing and bubbling up, and now it could just get unleashed between these two houses and their followers in his town. And if that happens, he could lose, he could be deposed, he could lose his throne, and certainly his town is just going to be awash in blood. And so he's got to try to keep a lid on this, and he finds a middle way between what the Capulets want and what the Montagues want, and he decides to banish Romeo. Even though Romeo was enacting the justice that the prince would have enacted, Tybalt slew Mercutio, which means that Tybalt should have been put to death, and Romeo did that for him, arguably. But Romeo did murder someone, so he finds a middle ground and banishes Romeo. And he says, "Everybody follow me. I'm going to fine everybody. Everyone's going to have to pay me a bunch of money. So much money that you are not going to want to do this again. And for now, tell Romeo he better get out of this town, get out of Verona, and if he's found, he'll be put to death." And so, given the state of affairs, of the enmity between these two houses, the hatred that they have for each other, combined with this new weapon that is so deadly and so subtle and so quick to kill somebody, all it takes is one hot afternoon, and this whole thing is going to come down on these two lovers' heads. All it took was a hot day.